And so I think with any kind of improvement, whether it's self-improvement, whether it's artistic or work, trying to get better at your job, trying to get better at playing music or doing anything.
Yeah.
I think there's a natural drive in us to be self-improving, but you can always fetishize it in a bad way and turn it into a, like I'll never be good enough kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And so where I think I've gotten with it in my self-assessment is that I do always need to be doing better, or I do need to be improving myself. And there's still lots to go, lots of way, to do it.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what I would be doing if I wasn't trying to get better.
Welcome to the Dad Bod, a podcast that tells the story of what it means to be a dad today, one dad at a time. My name is Sean, and I'm a dad living in New York City with my wife and our 2 young native New Yorkers. If you like what we're doing with the Dad Bod, show some love by subscribing and giving the show a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. The Dad Bod is all about genuine stories of modern fatherhood, so by elevating the show, you're also elevating the story of what it means to be a dad today. Thank you for tuning in and supporting the Dad Bod. With the prime friendship forming years of school behind us, making new friends in adulthood is hard. But school is exactly where I found myself this past May, and, to my pleasant surprise, I made a friend. McIntyre Smith, whose voice you heard at the beginning of the show. I was already acquainted with Alan, but on that day, sitting side by side in a mostly empty school auditorium of seats not made for dad bods, we were 2 grown men talking like young boys with nothing to do while waiting for the teacher's next instruction. One of the many topics we covered that day was career and side hustles. Our careers are polar opposites. Broadly speaking, mine is in business, whereas Alan's is in art. I remember telling my parents when I was 5 that I wanted to be an artist. I don't blame them for shutting that down immediately, and yet, at 44 years old with a cup that overfloweth with middle-aged blessings, I still want to make art. You may laugh, but that's what the Dad Bod is for me, my attempt to create something that points to truth and beauty. And if there's one thing that I've learned in my brief side hustle as an artist, it's this. It's hard. It took me 5 months to complete an essay I loved but very few people read. You don't need to go to business school to understand that's a bad ROI, but I wanted to know what Alan thinks after 30 years of being in business as an artist. It's the kind of conversation that happens when 2 dads get to talk like boys again. I'm grateful to be sharing this with you. Alan, continuous improvement of dad. What's your favorite comfort food?
Ooh, my favorite comfort food has changed quite a bit over the years. I'd say in an earlier version of Alan, it was pancakes.
Okay.
Maybe blueberry pancakes, comfort food. It could have been mac and cheese, classics of Americana. These days, I'd say my comfort food is palak paneer. I always loved Indian food. I lived in India for a while doing a movie.
Oh, nice.
And I wanted to bring that home with me. But about between 5 and 10 years ago, I decided to really learn palak paneer.
Okay.
It's my favorite Indian dish.
What is palak paneer?
It's based in a combination of spinach and tomato sauce.
Okay.
You add some cream or coconut cream, something like that.
So your family is the beneficiary of
Yeah.
this. And a lot of your other cooking, I imagine.
Yeah. To me, it's very important to inculcate good eating habits with the girls. Like, I can build them from scratch with what we're feeding them, So we're educating them, we're teaching them about the world, but we're also teaching them how to eat. And I feel like when I was growing up, we were still suffering the consequences of middle 20th century American cooking.
Yeah.
Like things in cans, frozen food, all that kind of stuff. Like the things that were supposed to make our lives easier made us all much unhealthier.
Yeah, degraded us without realizing. I ate a lot of pizza rolls and chimichangas.
Yeah. Those are very good for you. Those are actually okay, but it's the other stuff.
Luckily I found the couple items that are actually good for you. Right. Well, that's cool though that you do this. You look at this as not just food that you like, but also something for the kids too, in terms of obviously nourishment, but also education.
Yeah. Well, I got kind of obsessed with nutrition about 15 years ago. I'm a cinematographer, and holding a camera all day is hard enough if you're in shape, let alone if you're getting out of shape. And I feel like I saw a photo once of me on set, and I was filming a music video for a young woman who was in her late teens. And the first thought I saw when I looked at the image was Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, no.
And it just hit me dude, you got to lose some weight. You got to get your life together.
It was a wake-up call.
It's just a wake-up call moment. And, it's like I'm a self-flagellating type person.
Okay.
I grew up Catholic, so I've got all that going on. And
got those strong self-flagellation muscles.
Yeah. Like, can reach the back with the whip really well. All metaphorically, of course. But I do think, all right, I want to be around for my kids when they get older. I want to get as old as I can and have as good a life as I can live.
Yeah.
All those kind of things.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is just walking around with my 15-year-old daughter. We hold hands. We talk about stuff. She tells me about either shows she's watching, or she loves to write, so she'll tell me about some convoluted plot she's working on.
Yeah.
And to me, it doesn't matter so much what we're talking about, but just that we're connecting, we're talking. My whole job is just to build trust.
So introduce yourself. Tell me your name, your age, how long you've been married, your kids' ages and genders, what you do for a living, as well as any other hats that you wear or commitments that you keep that are worth mentioning.
Okay, here goes. Alan McIntyre Smith, although I sometimes go by Alan McIntyre as a writer and director. I'm 50 years old, and I've been married to Mingy for 16 years now. 2 daughters. One is 15, going into sophomore year of high school. One is 11, going into 6th grade, middle school. And I think of myself as a filmmaker, primarily a cinematographer, shooting movies, commercials, music videos, TV. I've always been directing at the same time, and so I sort of straddle those two jobs. But about 22 years ago, I happened into a teaching job for cinematography, which helped me bridge from being just a gaffer doing lighting into cinematographer. And then that job led to another teaching job, and then that other teaching job led into another teaching job. So as I've been building my shooting career, I've also built up a teaching career at 3 different universities, which ultimately came back around to offering me a chance to direct a feature film. The golden chalice of directing is everyone wants to make a movie, and you just get stuck directing commercials or directing TV.
I see.
So it's funny because I always felt like, oh, well, I'm just teaching as a side hustle. But it turns out I achieved my ultimate goal through the side goal.
I guess I want to start with your career as a filmmaker, as a cinematographer, is, to me, as an outsider, all about capturing moments and trying to communicate the truth and beauty of life, to show us something about ourselves and each other. Whereas my line of work in, business, broadly speaking, is all about effectuating outcomes. And they seem like they couldn't be further apart. In my line of work, I would say truth and beauty are the optional meeting attendees, if you will. So that's my outsider perspective. But for you as an insider, somebody who has made movies, who has been in, for me, an industry of trying to capture truth and beauty, what is the actual truth of it in your experience?
Well, recently I've been coming more into a business mindset, coming into it originally as a more artist mindset, and anti-capitalist kind of mindset. And I feel like the business of film is just like any other business. It's treacherous, it's difficult, way harder than you might think. And it's compounded by the illusion of it being a fun, arty kind of way to live. So, if someone goes into a more traditional corporate kind of business, I feel like that already comes with a lot of ideas about what the business should be. Whereas going into a more arty kind of business, I feel like it gives you this false impression that the art matters, and it does, but really the business matters.
I see.
And so it's a fun thing to do, and it is fun. For me, there's nothing more engaging than shooting a scene or making something happen with an actor or even just a skyline.
Yeah.
But it really is, honestly, much closer to effectuating outcomes than you might think.
I see.
Because if you don't come home at the end of the day with a hard drive full of shots that work and communicate what the director or producers are trying to communicate, then it's useless.
So was there a moment in your career where you had sort of a hard realization about this, where you went from maybe naive or idealistic and to realizing, wait a second, this is not exactly all about the art of this?
Yeah, I've had that many times.
Okay.
I started as a production assistant and then moved into lighting and then moved into doing cinematography and then directing. And at each of those steps, you have to kind of restart your career because nobody that knows you as one thing will hire you as another.
Yeah.
Unless you're famous, maybe. But if you're trying to convince someone to pay you to do something, they want to see that you've done it before.
Yeah.
I think we have this as dads too, of the idea of like, oh, I remember when you were this little. And like no kid ever likes meeting their uncle and giving their cheek pinched and being like, oh, you've grown so much. It's like, yeah, duh. So I feel like I was very naive in a sense of just thinking I could just come here and make it. But that naivete allowed me to just come here and build a career,
right?
Even though I have no family in the business, nothing.
Yeah.
So, I started out with an unpaid internship that I then managed to get into my first on-set job. And then that job led to another. So I feel like it's been a continuous series of revelations for me. Yeah. And the most recent series I've been going through is just getting good business books for corporate worker type business books.
Oh, wow.
And seeing what I can learn from that.
Oh, interesting.
And just going, why didn't I read these stupid business books 25 years ago? Like I was like reading books about Caravaggio and artists and stuff. And, and if I'd been a little smarter about the business side of things early on, maybe that could have helped me, maybe not.
Yeah.
It's very easy to deceive yourself into seeing it as an artistic calling rather than as a business. But I'll tell you the opposite view, though, is I've worked with a lot of people who have sort of settled into their jobs, whether it's as a camera assistant or as a sound person or as a lighting tech. And a lot of them are just super miserable.
Yeah.
Because they don't care about the artistry of it. And they've kind of just turned it into a, well, what else am I going to do kind of job.
I see.
And I feel that's the opposite of how I see it. I've definitely had moments where I've been, feeling screwed over or whatever by various jobs, or sometimes I didn't get paid by a job or this or that, various things happen in a freelance world. But I feel like I want to make decisions for my life that are, when I look back on it, I go, okay, well, even if I feel like I didn't get everything I wanted, like I pursued what I was interested in and I built a career. I've worked on hundreds of films at this point. Like that's what gives me artistic or business kind of satisfaction.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're not completely dismissing the naivete. You appreciate that it is what got you to where you are. And at the same time, I feel like when you're describing people who've settled into the job, they have let go completely of there being any thread of art or meaning in what they're doing. So would you say that you still kind of keep that naivete alive, keep that flame alive, so to speak?
Yeah, I think if you're going to do something that has artistic merit, regardless of what the job is, if you're painting, if you're writing, if you're shooting something, keeping that engagement is what makes me excited to go do what I do. So when I'm teaching, I don't just teach technical stuff. I teach the technical in order to achieve the artistic.
Yeah.
So if a painter doesn't know how to mix paint to get the right color,
right,
their painting's going to suffer.
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever skills they have. And same with me. Like I learned lighting before I started shooting. I didn't want to be dependent on someone else's expertise.
Yeah, you didn't want to say to them, can you make it look more, nice?
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, no, like this. Can you adjust you can actually speak in the technical terms.
I can say, put the light there with this thing on it. I've had people mess with me, and I've had people either consciously or unconsciously go against what I asked.
Yeah.
And I can always call it. I can always spot it because I've been there.
You've been there.
You know, and I feel like, these days, like the technology is achieved, that cameras have and lights and stuff, LED is taken over from old-fashioned tungsten and other types of lights. So it's a lot easier to do what we do in some ways. It's a lot easier to make things look good because the technology has improved. Yeah. But there's still a rigor that's required.
I mean, to me, it must come down to caring, I guess.
Yeah. Why does someone like a Spielberg movie as opposed to some other person's movie? Because Spielberg has spent 50 years honing his craft and making decisions to basically guide you through this story.
Yeah.
So he's a shepherd for the audience.
Got it.
So I'm more inspired by working with people like that.
Yeah.
Who want to be a guide. Every artist should be a guide. So again, I feel like you have to learn the technical.
Yeah.
So that you can execute at a professional level.
Yeah.
Because someone might have a good idea and maybe they get a good shot, but can they get the 10 other shots that seamlessly match with that?
And when it comes to a lot of the business concepts that you've been taking in recently, what's one or two that are really captivating you right now that you're trying to take action on?
I think the most important one is organization. And I'm a very messy person. My wife can attest to that. I kind of thrive in a chaotic environment. And I've been trying to train myself to hone in, clean up my desktop, clean up my workspace. And I've actually been finding it quite helpful in terms of having less visual stimulation, learning to appreciate a more minimalistic attitude or idea, whether it's workspace or brain space. That's another thing with meditation too, where you bring intentional nothingness into your life in a sense to not be constantly bombarded with stuff.
You mentioned how you got to the goal of a feature film kind of through the side door. So can you tell me that story in a sequence of scenes? How did that happen?
Okay. So there's one important thing in the film business and probably any business, which is keep it in the family. So I was teaching at 2 universities, at SUNY Purchase and at Rutgers, and a third university got in touch with me asking if I could teach a class there. And I'm a person, my mantra is to say yes whenever possible, because I just feel like whenever I turn things down, the universe stops giving. And when I say yes, even if it's frustrating, even if I get overburdened, it always works out in a better place. So at that time, I was teaching 2 days a week, and I was shooting a TLC show called 4 Weddings, where we would fly out each week to a different spot throughout the U.S., film for the week, and then come back on Sunday. So at that point, I was working 7 days a week. I was teaching Monday, Tuesday. I would bring my suitcase to class on Tuesdays, fly out of Newark, and go to Texas or go to Arizona or something, shoot for a week, and then come back, see the kids Sunday afternoon.
Do it all over again.
Do it all over again. And so I was literally like, okay, I'd love to work with you, new person, but there's no day I can fit this
until
in.
there is an 8th day added to the week.
Exactly.
I'm not available.
So I thought about who could I recommend. And so a longtime collaborator, Jay Stern, a director I've worked with a lot. We had just finished a $2 million movie in Wales. And so that perfectly positioned him to be a legitimate director. All our previous films had been $25,000, $100,000 movies, very small budget. So we had very good timing in that I could present him as a legit director, someone that knows their craft and could teach. So I knew that if I got him in there as opposed to just saying no thanks, I figured it could work out. So this new place was called Rider University. It's a small liberal arts college in New Jersey near Princeton. So my buddy starts teaching the one class there. That one class balloons into a full-time job for him there, teaching. They're building up their film program. It's a brand new film program. And so he started getting me in there to teach workshops and stuff like that. That was step one. And then during the pandemic, they hired me as an adjunct to both teach and direct, and another woman, Joan. So the three of us each directed a short film that was interconnected. And so the whole class worked on it. So we spent the semester making this project. So that was a great way to kind of come in, not as a cinematographer, but as a director.
Yeah. And
while we were editing those projects, a script came to me from another director I'd worked with. Basically, they were looking for a cinematographer, co-director kind of situation. And the whole movie took place on a college campus.
Okay.
So I said, oh, maybe this is my in. So I talked to the boss at Rider, and he was very excited to invite a feature to come shoot on the campus.
Yeah.
And so as that film progressed, we shot it that summer, and they actually made me the full director after we started working for a little bit.
Yeah.
The producers were like, oh, Alan's really directing this. Let's just
awesome.
give it to him. So I ended up both directing and being the cinematographer on set, and then I edited the movie.
Yeah.
And then we went on a festival run, about a dozen festivals over that year. And now it's released through digital platforms and stuff, Amazon and all that.
And the name of the film?
It's called Stargazer.
This is the one about the female scientist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Cecilia Payne.
I read your Substack article on it, and the shots were beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And I loved how you wrote about it, too. Just the way that you wrote about the work as well. Does that movie, in addition to being that goal that everyone has, the pinnacle of the mountain in film, did it live up to everything you had hoped?
Yes and no. You have the fantasy of making movies, and then there's the reality of it, and there's the reality of, trying to get people to watch a movie, trying to get people to listen to your podcast, trying to get people to read your article, whatever it is, nobody has time for it. So the humbling aspect of it has been the long sort of march.
Yeah.
But it inspired me to start a Substack, writing about films, writing about that movie, writing about other projects I do. And that has been very empowering to me to basically take my own personal history and work history into my own hands and kind of narrativize that.
I've loved it. Your articles are really well written and entertaining. They move, they touch a depth to it. So I always love reading your articles. And one in particular recently that I think, if there is such a thing as, you have, favorite playlists of music, right? Favorite playlists of articles. I would definitely have your most recent one about Emily Dickinson for the win. That one is such a good article for pretty much everybody on Substack and anybody who's creating and trying to put their heart into something and hoping people give it some notice. And it, like you said, it's very humbling. You can put hours and hours into something that you think is amazing, and nothing in terms of anybody paying any attention to it. So I felt like that article was great, and I imagine you wrote it from a very with a lot of experience, which, for me, when you talked about Van Gogh having done, almost 1,000 paintings and having sold one in his lifetime, and then you ticked off example after example. Otis Redding didn't get Docked by the Bay,
Not till he's dead.
Not
Does
till
he
he's
become
dead.
popular?
Not till he's dead, which, I mean, we listen to it all the time here. And I'm like, wow, he didn't even get to see that become a #1 hit. So,
but I'll bet he knew it would be.
I'll
bet he knew it would be, because you can't sing like that if you're not, if you don't believe in yourself, you know? And I think the key to all this, whether it's artistic or if you're starting a business, a side hustle, just raising kids, the key is just keep going.
Yeah.
Like, I started out with 4 readers on my Substack, and those early couple months, first of all, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying different stuff, writing about different movies or different ideas, and I just didn't know what would stick. But by that experimentation, I kept building up more and more readers, and then I'm at a little over 300 now. And the more painful it is for me to put out, the better it does. If I feel a little worried about it,
oh, interesting.
I feel like, okay, this will connect. And if I feel like, oh yeah, this is, you know, whatever, and then it doesn't connect.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. So painful as in, like, you have doubts about it. You're like, is anybody going to like this thing?
Yeah. Or is this just too self-involved, or is this too specific? I feel like I find a happy medium of just enough revelation that I'm uncomfortable revealing it.
I see. So kind of about the line of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like, how far are you on that line? That type of thing.
Yeah. And it's funny because my first real revelation came about 6 months into doing it, where I was going to write a movie about Akira Kurosawa's Ran. I was going to write an article about that. That was getting re-released in a 4K new transfer. And I went to IFC Center in the Village to watch it with my friend. And I left the theater and I saw the poster for Todd Solondz's Happiness. And that was my first movie I worked on. And I was like, oh, why is that poster up? And I realized, oh, it's the 30th anniversary of the release or something like that. And I thought, what if I wrote, what did I learn on happiness? Because I learned so much. I feel like I had an exponential growth of understanding of the film business on that first movie. And that exponential growth always happens when you're first learning something, and it feels very exciting and invigorating. I hate listicles in general, but I did a listicle. I listed 10 lessons I learned on my first movie. And that article got so much attention because it was very clearly delineated. It was very helpful. A bunch of former students got back in touch with me and were like, oh, I saw your article on LinkedIn. And big people in the film space and Substack also hyped it up. You know, so it was like one of those things where I suddenly realized, wait, why am I writing about movie reviews when I could write about my career? And I'd sort of eschewed writing about my career in that I just didn't want it to be self-centered and, you know, but then it kind of helped me realize, wait, what I see as self-centered, someone else sees as a valuable lesson. Yeah. Maybe, you know, if I do it right.
Right. I imagine it's gotten easier a little bit the more you do it, or is it kind of the same?
It's definitely gotten easier, but there's still that gnawing, like, am I just being a buffoon kind of idea.
Right. Look at me.
Yeah. And I've always been there's a reason I'm behind the camera. You know, I've always been a more private person, but through the act of teaching over 23 years now, I've become a more adept at public speaking, more adept at sharing. Yeah. And what's really great about teaching is I've gotten to a point where I can, you know, I never go into a class expecting to just wing it, but I can wing a 3-hour class and it's good. It's not just me yabbering. Like, I've had classes where it's just a back and forth. One student asks a question, I answer it. That leads to a new question, which we just go back and forth. And before you know it, the class is over. But everyone walks out going like, wow, I learned so much.
And so is the key in those situations, and maybe throughout all of your teaching situations now, to bring, or to be willing to bring a willingness to share about yourself, to bring those stories in?
To me, anyone can learn these things through YouTube videos. Yeah. Anyone can learn these through reading books or magazines or AI even. So what's the point of me teaching them? And the point is, I've actually done this. I've done the thing you want to do. Yeah. So I always start with that attitude of, like, not as an arrogant thing, but just as a little bit paternalistic maybe, but like, there's a reason to listen to me.
Right.
Now, I know you don't yet believe that, so I need to prove that to you.
Right.
And I can usually do that within the first day of class.
Yeah.
And students these days, they are very sophisticated in a lot of ways, and then they hide their lack of sophistication pretty well. And so they've basically gotten to a point where, you know, they come into my classes much more advanced than they used to when I started teaching. So it made my job harder in one way, in that I've got to figure out what they already know. But I find a lot of times even the best students are hiding a lot of ignorance.
Yeah.
You know, like not in a bad way, but just the way we all do.
Well, it makes it also even more clear what your important and essential contribution is to bring that, hey, I've done this before, and to speak from that. If you're just narrating the text, narrating the material, being just purely a conduit of the technical information, then I guess, especially these days, you're not adding anything. Do the students come in even with somewhat of a self-made resume already too? Like they've created things, I imagine, right? A lot of that.
A lot of them. I find that the most accomplished students are often the worst students in that they have too much attitude or too much arrogance. And I try to gently help them see like how much more they can learn.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, I've always been a lifelong learner. I've always saw myself as a student. And I want to be able to never say like, oh, I've done that. I know everything about cinematography. You know, it's funny when I look back at earlier projects when I was much younger, you know, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I see my ignorance much more clearly now. So what I try to do with the students is help them understand that no matter how much you know, there's always more to learn.
You mentioned your dad was an architect, and architects that I know, it seems high expectations are part and parcel with that line of work. Do you feel like you learned high expectations from your dad? Did he model that?
Yeah, my dad was a great model in a lot of aspects of my life, and to the point where I even feel like I felt inadequate compared to him in terms of he was so on point with so many things. He was a classical architect in the age of brutalism in the 70s, 80s. He was making buildings that had columns, and he was pushing for beauty in architecture at a point where people were saying, no, ugly is beautiful. And he said, no, ugly is ugly. And so he hated those poured concrete type buildings. And so he had a huge effect on me. He was a freelancer, and he was a teacher as well eventually. So freelance architect with 5 and then 6 kids eventually. Freelance didn't pay the bills, and so he first got a job at University of Illinois at Chicago, and then that led to a job at Notre Dame, where he settled for the rest of his life. But he always maintained an architectural practice while he was teaching.
I see. And
he also published several books about classical architecture. So I've definitely modeled myself after him in a lot of ways. But, you know, especially when I was younger, I felt like I was just this inadequate version of him, or, you know, it's just like just that way that you can feel very anxious as a young person. They call this the age of anxiety, but I feel like there was plenty of anxiety back in the 80s and 90s.
So looking back, how much of that do you think was in the way that he carried himself, and how much of it was just your own personal kid prism interpreting your dad and you putting him on the pedestal? How much of it was him looking down, you know, in a sense at you, and how much of it was you just looking up at him on the pedestal?
I definitely have a pedestal problem in that I put people on pedestals. And that's something I had to learn over the long term, mostly through girlfriends and then a wife. Like, I tend to idealize things and people. That's something I've learned about myself. And it makes me a very loyal person in many ways, but it also, there's a naive element to it as well that I've had to fight and learn about. You know, but my dad, he was really incredible. I mean, I it's partly me, but it's, my prism on him, but I find him very inspirational. He has thousands of students that would say he was the reason that they became an architect or they got a job, so he's a very formal person. I'm kind of the opposite of him in that I can play formal, but I feel very informal. I feel like I did a lot of things that he never did. And there's good and bad of all of that, I feel like, sure. But he was very focused on building his career, fighting the good fight against, the forces of brutalism. Yeah. and so I internalized a lot of that. But he was so successful in certain ways that I would feel inadequate. And I felt like, and the thing is though, he was always very positive towards myself and the other kids in my family, my siblings. He was always supportive. Never said, "Oh, you should really get a real job." He was always interested in what I was working on. And the toughest thing really was when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, watching him fade away and lose his self and identity over the course of about a decade was really traumatic and horrifying, and eventually made my peace with it. And he had health problems as a child that my mom put a good perspective on it when I was lamenting this to her. And she's like, it's actually kind of a miracle he made it to 73, given the issues he had early on. And, he had a history of Alzheimer's in his family. Both his parents had it. So we'd gone through this whole thing with my grandparents first. Yeah. And then with him. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's in my family. That's in my, so what can I be doing to try to not have that happen? Right.
No, very, very motivating. Yeah. Yeah. Like how do we, I think about that a lot, both, things that you can attribute to genetics, things that you can attribute to something that I feel like is almost as strong as genetics itself is just culture, like your family culture or habits or presumed norms. Like, there's nature and nurture, but some of the nurture is so ingrained, they couldn't stop that way of nurturing if they tried. They couldn't stop that way of modeling life that way if they tried. And so I think about that a lot. Like how do we sort of take the baton from the older generation, the good and the bad of it, and then run our leg of the race? Sometimes like honoring it is by trying to reproduce what they did, and other times it's trying to evolve it. And sometimes it's like actually completely reverse it. Like that was bad. This is going to be a new tradition, a new way for our families, generations going forward.
Yeah, I feel like my favorite thing about being a dad is getting to try out all those things that you think of as like, especially as a teenager, maybe like, oh, I wish my parents didn't do this or didn't do that, or I'm glad they do this or that. So I got to experiment on my own and see what actually worked. Yeah. And, I feel like I did the opposite of my parents in a lot of things. But I definitely had a lot of things that I do because of how I was raised, or, just saying, oh, I feel like I got a lot out of this thing or that thing.
Yeah. I imagine you've probably talked about some of them already, but what's one that stands out that you're like, because my parents raised me this way, that's why I do this as well?
Well, we were raised without a TV, and we read a lot of books. And so even though we do, I work in TV and film, so maybe that's my revenge. But I've always loved reading. I've never stopped reading through my whole life, even in this digital age. I'm still reading books every day, and I feel like that we've definitely passed on to our daughters. I feel like my wife reads a lot more than when we met. Okay. Like there's really no downside to reading. Yeah. Only upside. It's just like we'll never know everything we need to know. So as long as you're just improving yourself in some way, just learning new things or just enjoying a book even, you learn by getting in other people's heads and experiencing the world through their perspective.
So how about things that you've tried that are different from what your parents did?
Well, a big one for me was I was always frustrated by my parents' very strict idea of what I should be watching. So like when I was 12, I was not allowed to watch PG-13 movies. And so I've really, in the wrong way, gone the opposite. And like I've shown my kids all sorts of crazy stuff. And now there is a nuance here is my dad would take me to European art movies.
Okay.
So I saw like My Life as a Dog. He took me to Aguirre, Wrath of God. Like, so all these really kind of nutty European type films. So I was exposed to a lot of different type of movies. So as long as there was an artistic aspect to it.
Okay.
And it even Coming to America. So my dad went and saw Coming to America.
Okay.
And he said, well, there's some naked breasts in the movie, but the movie has an overall positive reason to watch it. So he wasn't just like a stick in the mud.
Yeah.
But definitely if there was like an arty movie with some nudity or something, that wasn't an issue for him. But for some, like for example, I've never seen Dirty Dancing to this day.
Yeah.
Everyone in my age group has seen Dirty Dancing.
Yeah.
And I will never watch it because it's too late. But when I was in middle school, all my friends had seen it.
Yeah.
I knew the songs because it was at the middle school dances they'd play or it was on the radio. So long story short, our whole family went to see Deadpool versus Wolverine.
Okay. Yeah.
And halfway through the movie, my, at that point, 10-year-old daughter leans over to me and says, Daddy, I think this movie's inappropriate for me. And I said, yes, it is.
Sorry to be the adult here, but I'm going to have to parent myself because the driver's asleep at the wheel right now. This is not appropriate for me.
But at the same time, there's a lot of other R-rated or whatever movies. Like they don't like horror movies per se.
Yeah.
But I did take my older one to she wanted to see Backrooms, and we saw Obsession.
Yeah.
And so she's just getting old enough to kind of appreciate those kind of movies.
Okay.
You know, I feel like they're growing up in New York. They're hearing swear words everywhere. I swear. I just feel like I want them to experience reality.
Yeah.
Like for example, I thought that adults didn't drink and didn't swear because my dad and mom didn't drink or swear.
Okay.
And then as an adult, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of drunken buffoons around here.
And some of them I kind of like them.
Yeah. You know, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of weird things that you think you understand as a kid and then get older and realize you were totally off base.
Right. So besides Deadpool, what are the movies that you're like, my kids really, like you find yourself saying to your kids, you have to watch this movie. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, I tried that. I brought them to what I think is one of the best movies ever, which is Kubrick's 2001.
Okay.
So it was a 70 millimeter print playing at the Paris Theater, which is a great place that really takes film projection seriously. And I bought the 3 tickets for us, and I got them popcorn, and they were dying. It was like way too slow, too boring. I thought they would love the music and the spaceships floating around with the Blue Danube and other, classical instrument music. At one point, my older one started kicking the seat in front of her. And I said, okay, it's time to go. We got about maybe a third to halfway through the movie, and I felt really defeated because I'd taken them to some weird stuff when they were younger. Real like grown-up movies, but I messed up on that one.
How old were they?
That was like 2 years ago. So 13 and 9 maybe.
Yeah.
But I really, I had a little too much of blind faith in their ability to get through that movie.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to ruin it for other people just to teach them a lesson or something.
Right. No, you need to, pay homage to this great piece of art.
Yeah.
You're like, no, let's just not ruin this for other people.
Yeah.
But maybe you planted some seeds.
Maybe. I hope so. Because a lot of things that I resisted as a kid, like my parents would always take us to lots of museums, which would get old after a while. But now I love going to museums. And I now torture my kids by taking them to museums. And boy, every time I suggest we go to the Met, they're like, no, not the Met.
Again.
But yeah, I think it's important to torture them a little bit in a good way.
Yeah.
If you only make it about what they want, then they're going to grow up with this delusion that what they want matters to the world, and it doesn't. So you got to fight it. And
so what have you learned about bringing them to movies that are inappropriate for their age? Like, what is it something you'd recommend? And I say inappropriate with air quotes.
Yeah. I feel like I recommend just letting them sample what life is about and not being too protective. Like if they're very young, obviously you don't want them seeing lots of violence or things like that. But, they'll watch a lot of anime, and a lot of anime is, I think, very inappropriate for kids. If you're a religious conservative or something, you might be upset that there's a guy with a chainsaw head chopping people up.
Yeah.
And my older daughter loves that show, Chainsaw Man, and I'm kind of horrified by it. I'm like, I
like,
really,
this is inappropriate for me.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with this. I'm feeling triggered. But they love that. The older one made this great Halloween costume of Chainsaw Man. So she was going around with this chainsaw headpiece thing. She got compliments at Halloween for that. So I find it very difficult to watch anime.
Yeah.
I just don't get the stories, or there's something not clicking for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, movies that they find very boring, I get a lot out of, perhaps. So I think it's just a different mindset when you're that age.
Yeah.
Like I used to love reading comic books. I can't read comic books anymore.
Things change.
Yeah. I don't get anything out of it.
Yeah.
Or I actually find it difficult to look at pictures and read text. So I can either read text or look at pictures, but.
Do you watch with captions?
I hate that.
Really? Because
Unless
becomes
it's a
norm now.
I know. It really bugs me that all the streamers now just automatically caption. You have to opt out.
Yeah.
And you can call me ableist if you want, but I think it's, I find it very frustrating because I can't not look at captions.
Yeah.
So it takes me away from the emotion of the acting.
Right.
And it's like movies are meant to be an emotional experience, not an information delivery service.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my life getting away from the intellectualizing of art and into the emotional processing of it.
Yeah.
Then to go back, I don't like that.
Interesting. So the intellectualizing and the motion of it are different.
Yeah.
Different things for you. I think of the intellectual and the emotional being somewhat intertwined. And then there's the commercialization that I feel like is on the other side of this. So unpack the intellectual and emotional part. Well,
so I think when I first started watching movies, it was very much emotional. We lived in Rome when I was growing up for a little bit. My dad got the Rome Prize for architecture.
Oh, wow.
Back in those days, old 16 millimeter prints would be sent around from one church to another. And every Sunday afternoon, they would do a screening of kids' movies or various movies. And so I would ask my parents, apparently, I don't remember this, we went to see Peter Pan like dozens of times.
Oh, wow.
And they'd find out which church was playing Peter Pan that week, and we'd go see it. And then it turns out I didn't want to grow up. So I guess that really got into me somehow. So yeah, I was definitely had that experience of really enjoying the sort of ritual of watching these movies I connected to.
Yeah.
And, but then as I was studying film in college, my teacher in particular, Jill Godmellow, is a very, very smart woman, very intellectual, radical kind of person making kind of avant-garde documentaries. And so learning from someone like that, it kind of tips you in that direction of overthinking things, at least in my case.
Yeah.
So it had both a good and bad effect on me in terms of getting me into this more, why kind of mentality, as opposed to just letting the emotional tug you along.
Right.
You can't totally separate it. You need to use some thinking faculties when you're watching a movie, but it's weird. Like I feel like I didn't quite understand the emotional component of movies for a long time.
Really?
I think that's just my density, though.
Oh, interesting. So as a kid watching Peter Pan over and over again, there was maybe an instinctual emotional current
like
that
a connection
brought you
to
along. But then you're saying like as an adult, it took you a while to understand the emotions.
Yeah. And I think that's just self-realization and just maturing and going through all these things.
And having had time for the intellectualization of things to kind of not run its course, but have its moment in your sort of personal limelight.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I feel like I definitely took my teacher to heart, like the teachings to heart, and really trying out, like if she had a suggestion, I'd try it out.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then as an adult, you have to choose what you want to take from your education and apply to your own life, or, but yeah, I don't know why it took me so long to understand emotion. I think it's maybe repression. I don't know.
Was there a movie? Are there movies that you point to as like, oh, that helped me unlock that?
I mean, movies that really affected me. One was Amadeus. I went to that 5 times in the theater.
Oh, wow.
That was another one my dad took me to a lot.
Okay.
And I was learning the harpsichord at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so I got my harpsichord teacher to transcribe Eine kleine Nachtmusik into a sort of two-hand keyboard kind of thing. So, I mean, I feel like that's one where, when I was younger, I wanted to be the wonderkind kind of Amadeus, a genius. And that's very appealing to young people, to be like, oh, I want to be special.
Sure.
I want to feel special.
Sure.
I feel so small and insignificant. What if I was a musical genius,
right,
or a movie-making genius?
Right.
And then the older I've gotten, the more the Salieri, character appeals to me.
Yeah.
In that, like, God, why did you curse me with this desire to do stuff and not give me the skills that I think I need to do it? It's funny because Salieri gets a really bad rap in that story.
He does.
He was a much more respected musician than that movie or play gives him credit for. And that's an old story too. Peter Schaefer built on a long-standing, kind of fake story about Salieri's murder of Mozart. And I think it's also important not to get too self-flagellating again about, I'm not Spielberg or something, because we all have to find ways to be ourselves and feel fulfilled and everything. But there is this constant need to keep improving what I do or the kinds of movies I'm working on. And it's funny how those emotional things really resonate at certain points. Like it's feast or famine when you're a freelancer, so you either have too much to do or nothing to do. And so decades of living that way have given me tools, or I've developed tools to work with it. Like if I have no paid work, I start a new project, or I work on a project I'm sort of a back burner I'm working on, so I feel like the way I deal with those soul crushing feelings is going like, okay, well, if I just, make another movie, that's another possible thing I could put in the world, or that could be an interesting project.
So what I have been noticing kind of throughout our conversation is there's a very strong constant of improvement in your life. Like we started out talking about nutrition, and that's something that you've been improving on for 15 years. And sounds like as a kid, you were, like you described yourself as a maximalist. I imagine somebody who's trying to just take in everything, having visions of being the wonderkind, probably looking at your dad also and feeling inspired and maybe a bit intimidated at the same time as well. And I feel like you're very much still that type of person. Do you feel like that's true? Is that a true observation of you? Just the kind of desire to constantly improve?
Yeah, I definitely love feeling like, look where I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And if I don't feel like I'm in a markedly better place, I would feel bad about that. And I feel like at any point in my life, when I look back, even points where I felt like I was doing really well, I think I'm doing even better now.
Yeah.
And so I think with any kind of improvement, whether it's self-improvement, whether it's artistic or work, trying to get better at your job, trying to get better at playing music or doing anything. Yeah. I think there's a natural drive in us to be self-improving, but you can always fetishize it in a bad way and turn it into a, like I'll never be good enough kind of attitude. Yeah. And so where I think I've gotten with it in my self-assessment is that I do always need to be doing better, or I do need to be improving myself. And there's still lots to go, lots of way, to do it.
Yeah.
But I just don't know what I would be doing if I wasn't trying to get better.
I guess thing I'm wondering about, and I say this almost in every interview, all my questions are clearly about me. Just like, how do you keep from getting discouraged? Because based on your career journey and the hazards that are inherent to freelance film projects that have a constrained budget, big ambitions, and very disparate potential outcomes, I think it's just a hazard that you've had a lot of practice navigating, and you've probably got some muscles for fighting discouragement. And so how do you deal with discouragement?
So as a freelancer, I'm either on top of the world or buried under it.
Yeah.
So it's a feast or famine. It rains, it pours kind of idea. So for example, over the last year, I've shot 2 feature films. One was in the islands of Greece, and that was a very artistically fulfilling project with a longtime collaborator. The other one was a commercial type movie. It was a kind of a film noir racing movie, action-y kind of film, but still like a drama, high stakes drama, life and death kind of thing. That was shot in New Orleans with another kind of long-term collaborator. And so at both points doing those movies, there were very difficult moments. But at the same time, when I'm on set, I feel like I'm being successful. And when I'm off set, it's hard to feel successful.
I see.
And so that's something I've built up. There's nothing more discouraging as a freelancer than not getting called.
Yeah.
Like it's like not having a date Friday night.
Yeah.
It's like all those things where you're just like, am I just terrible? Am I unattractive? Am I whatever? It's hard not to take things personally because, we're people. So,
yeah, of course.
So I think part of the reason I'm always trying to improve myself or my career, my practice, is a way to fight discouragement, is a way to fight the feeling of worthlessness.
Yeah.
And again, that's why I try not to fetishize it or make it like, oh, if I eat this supplement, I'll do that, I'll feel this way. And certainly our culture weaponizes it against us. And that's something I try to teach the girls too, is to see the weaponization of your bad feelings about yourself.
Yeah.
And like, you don't need to buy that thing, or you don't need to buy that service, or whatever it is. You don't need that person telling you you're worthless.
Right.
I can do that myself.
For free.
For free. But, so I kind of take on too many things.
Yeah.
In that regard. So I'm shooting, I'm teaching, I'm editing, writing a blog or a newsletter. I'm doing podcast interviews. So I kind of, overdo it sometimes. And again, that's where I think parenting really changed my attitude in so many ways, in terms of, everyone has that cliche of, it gives you meaning. And it certainly gives you meaning to be a parent, but it only gives you meaning if you apply that to it. There's plenty of parents that I think would probably say it doesn't, it's just a big pain in the ass or whatever. So to me, I feel like, okay, well, if I can be imparting these ideas, like you're never going to feel happy all the time, right?
Yeah.
So how do you find a good baseline?
Right.
That you can have ups, you can have downs, but you can kind of, find that equilibrium. Like, I feel like I got all of my life's purpose from being on movies when I was young. I kind of put too much on it. And sometimes I would feel like, oh, am I just a one-dimensional person just going to movie sets and doing lighting or camera? And then, meeting my wife eventually and building that relationship and then having kids. All of that has really helped diversify my portfolio
Yeah.
of emotions.
There's the business,
Yeah.
the business books coming through.
Yeah. But it is important, like, again, to find that, if the chips are down in one part of my life,
Yeah.
there's, the kids are still there. The
Right.
kids still need attention. The kids
Yeah.
still need
Yeah.
help with homework or just a walk to talk things out or
Right.
whatever.
Right. It sounds to me, in a way, the instinct that has come out, or the intuition that you've honed, and the sort of foundation of control, if you will, is kind of a managed out of control. Like, you've got maybe too many burners going at once, out of a recognition from life teaching you that when it rains it pours, feast famine, that type of thing. So better to have maybe too many burners going, and perhaps the burner of parenting is one that's always there and always meaningful to have on. It sounds like.
Yeah, when I think back to how I spent my time off from work in my 20s, especially, there was a lot more watching of movies or trying to write and then giving up, trying all these different directions, much less focused than I've become.
Yeah.
And I feel like the best thing about getting older for me has been like learning to just be more focused.
Yeah.
And also realizing that it's okay if you've got 10 things going.
Yeah. And Ming-Yi, how did you guys meet?
Yeah, so I met Ming-Yi at just the right point in my life, where I had been on a series of disastrous attempts at relationships with people that didn't work out, one after the next. Yeah, my late 20s, early 30s were a dark time for me. So I met Ming-Yi through a film festival, and she was selected to star in a movie that I was selected to direct. It was a short film.
Okay.
And we had 1 month to make the project.
Okay.
So it was a short film festival that met every month.
Okay.
So I met her. I said, what was she into?
Uh-huh.
She said, oh, I'm a pianist. I said, oh, are you a real pianist, or did you play as a kid?
Uh-huh.
And she's like, oh, no, I'm concert level pianist.
Okay.
I said, okay, great.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, she's not an actor, so if I want any artistic kind of truth from her, they'll be through the music.
Uh-huh.
So I wrote a short film around her breaking up with her boyfriend.
Okay.
Through playing a sad song instead of saying, I don't like you anymore. The only problem is I had to call the movie Kumquat. So that was the other requirement, is I used this woman as the lead actress, and the movie has to be called Kumquat. So I had to look up what a kumquat is.
Okay.
And so it's like a little grape-sized citrus thing.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, maybe her boyfriend's a kumquat. Okay. So I went out and bought some kumquats. I bought some googly eyes and I glued them on. And I got my friend to be a little puppeteer. Uh-huh. So we just shot in an afternoon at an apartment that had a piano. And I cut the movie and showed it to her. And we were kind of digging each other, but I kind of took it slow because I didn't want to be some scumbag director,
right.
So over the course of a month or two after we played the movie in the festival, and we started hanging out and built up the relationship.
Yeah.
We dated for about 2 years and got married and have been together for 16 now. Nothing prepared me for marriage. I mean, it was so hard. I mean, just getting two people, especially these days. The thing is, I feel like when people, like my parents, my mom was 19 when she got married. My dad was in his 20s. And you haven't really fully formed yourself or decided who you are yet. Yeah. And these days we're all like, oh, we have to, make ourselves first and then go out and find someone. Right. It's funny because I feel like I was so set in my ways when we got married. Mm-hmm. And maybe this is true for any marriage, but I feel like there's something
even
about
more so, right?
Yeah. It's just hyper version of this as someone in my early 30s getting married as opposed to my early 20s.
Right.
I've got a lot of baggage of just sort of, this is how I live, this is how I do things.
Yeah.
And, I love to improve myself, but nobody loves to improve me more than my wife. So, God bless her. But and she's right, and that's what I had to also learn is like, she's always right.
Yeah.
Even when she's wrong, she's right.
Yeah.
And she is right.
Yeah.
I'm just constantly trying to become less self-involved, less selfish.
Yeah.
It's just a really tough thing.
That is. Yes, it is.
I mean, as an artist, it's like the nature of being an artist is to be self-involved. Not in that it's about navel gazing, but it's about if you're not spending time thinking about why are you doing this, or just the nature of creating something, you have to focus on it. You can't be making something of value.
Yeah.
You can't be writing a manuscript while you're attending to something else.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be fully in it.
Yeah.
So finding the way to be balanced about it, and I think like my wife's most upset with me when I'm away at a job and I'm not helping out at home.
Yeah.
She's not only working, but getting the kids to school or whatever it is. At the same time, if I never shoot a movie again, it feels like stabbed to the heart. So finding that balance and trying to be as present as I can be, or overly there when I am there.
Right.
I've done some movies that were very abusive, and the environment of it was, I had to go into self-defense mode and shut down a little bit, and I came back and one movie in particular, my wife was like, "Oh, you're being so mean to us."
Yeah.
And I had to go like, "Oh yeah, I'm being very standoffish," or because I had just been in this defensive crouch for 6 weeks at that point.
Yeah.
And then coming back to family life, it was a very different environment.
Right.
So emotions are tough. You can't just turn them on and off.
Yeah.
That's another thing I'm always trying to get better at, is try to do some sort of switch over, or just mindset shift of making sure you're doing these things, making sure you're preemptively getting that dishes clear out of the sink, whatever it is.
Right.
But again, it's hard to, it's always hard to think outside yourself. So
yeah, no, I definitely find that too, like with the emotions, and in general, I'm trying to take what I've dealt with throughout the day and not let it be something I dwell on, good or bad, which is, there's some obvious shortcomings to that, right? You're not appreciating the good things that happen because you're not allowing yourself to dwell on it and appreciate it. And the bad things, that's where I often get into trouble, is that I'm in a mood, I don't even realize why, because I haven't done the processing. I have no muscle for like pulling that out and being like and unpacking it. And so
that's why we need wives.
That's why we need wives. Yes, exactly. And so lately we have time where I literally have to talk. Like, it's required of me to talk, because if not, I won't. I will just say, this is so boring. I would not want to bring this into your consciousness. Like, it's so boring. It's so dumb. It was so just unpleasant. It does not deserve any more breath. But I find that actually it's really helpful, and she's a very good listener, and I need that. So, but it's so hard, right? To not be sort of self-involved, even with your best intentions of trying to keep it in. Actually, there's some kind of a selfishness to it as well, or turns out in a way that is, not positive, at least for those around us.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if you want to make my wife laugh, tell her that I have a degree in communication. Because I can be a brick wall. That's her number one complaint about me when she's, when we're having a fight or something. She's like, "I'm talking to myself."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." But I never really learned the art of fighting.
Yeah.
I grew up in more of a repressed environment, like many white people in America. And then I married someone from Taiwan.
I was going to say many Asian people.
Well, she was from a family. This is the difficult thing with marriage, is like both our family dynamics were the polar opposites.
Mm-hmm.
So I came from one where we don't really talk about things that are meaningful. I mean, we talk about meaningful things, but we often will not talk about what we're really thinking.
There's some areas that are walled off.
Yeah. Yeah. And she came from a family where it's like, you just never not poke the wound.
Oh.
You know, like it's just sort of like, oh, hi, you're fat. It's like, oh, okay. I was feeling okay, but now I'm like, I guess I won't eat dinner.
It's like, so how are you dealing with that bad haircut?
Yeah. So I just, you know, and it's taken, you know, it'll take my whole life to get to be a better communicator, I think. But I do actually work on it. I do actually try to fight my battles, but it's something that I've had to learn, you know, first with other girlfriends and then now with my wife of just like, you know, how to express myself emotionally.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's like all men, you know. I don't think it's just me.
Yeah.
But it's definitely was interesting that our families had two completely different styles of communication.
And then now you have to come together and have your own.
Exactly.
Come up with your own style.
So again, that's part of why I'm trying to be so direct with my kids and show them R-rated movies or talk to them about subjects that might be a little inappropriate, because I don't want them to feel like, oh, I must bury this deep down inside.
Right.
Like if they want to do something or be something, like I want to support that.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want them feeling like they have to hide something from me.
Yeah. Like this conversation. I hope that they're really going to enjoy listening to it and find that this was their dad doing what he always does with them, which is show them what real life is. So it's a great place to wrap. Thank you, Alan, for coming on to the show. I've really enjoyed this, and I appreciate you, joining me in a lot of my navel-gazing questions, and just appreciate your friendship.
Thank you. Well, it's so great to be on and talk with you. I just feel like these kind of subjects, men get a bad rap, or really dads get a bad rap these days.
We do.
So what I appreciate about this podcast is putting these stories forward, you know, front and center, and, nobody's perfect, but I think dads deserve to be more than a punchline.
Definitely. Positive, not perfect, and it's a story that is worth telling. So that's why we're doing it, and so I appreciate you doing this with me. This is us collaborating on it together. So I've enjoyed this collaboration.
Thank you. Me too.
Okay, Dad number 31 of the Dad Bod is in the books. Big thanks to Alan for sharing his story. I hope this brought a little something positive to your day. Thanks again for listening.